How come Gary doesn't ever get married? Like, I never see him with a woman. Is there something going on there with Gary?
I have no idea.
Thorough. All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, where we're honored to have Mitch Seinfeld in studio. Mitch, how are you, buddy?
Doing very well. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for taking the time to come out to our studio. So, Mitch, we were talking earlier on the earlier show how, in this wrestling world, when you first get into it, you only know about the mainstream stuff, but then you kind of start to find out about the people behind the scenes, and that being someone like yourself, right? So, fans that may not know you, can you tell them a little bit about Mitch Seinfeld?
What could I say? I'm going to be 54 this July, but right before I turned 17, I promoted my first pro wrestling show. In fact, everyone who says they're a promoter, like when they're 16 or 17, legally, the state's not giving me a license. So my mother took out the license, but I was the one who ran my first show at 16 years old. We had a nice crowd. I didn't know anything about wrestling. I did it with Afa, the Wild Samoan, and on my first show I had, in fact, let me grab this poster. I don't know if the camera will catch it. This has been in my warehouse for years. This was in 1986. Hope everyone could see it.
Oh, yeah.
I had Ivan
Freaking love that.
That is awesome.
Cowboy Bobby Duncombe, Wendy Richter, the Samoans. Where it says the Great Coquina, that was Yokozuna.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean,
Wow.
the Tonga Kid. I had my friend Ox Baker I became friends with, and this was a show I did. And I was a kid. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but I wanted to be in the wrestling business. And that's how it started.
I find it incredible that that's in a high school. Look at those names on that card.
Yeah, Alpha did a nice job with it, but it was very difficult. I wasn't with the WWF. It was a local independent show, so I had to put up posters and flyers and all sorts of stuff that people don't do today. Today, everything's on Facebook. They put a little thing up, a couple flyers, and they draw 200 or 300 people, and that's what the shows are, what they are. If they're lucky, some shows draw even less. I think if I remember, we had almost 1,000 people that day.
How does a 16-year-old...
Oh, that's another story.
How are you
we don't have enough time.
How are you even allowed to run an event? I'm like amazed at this.
The license was under my mother's name.
Okay.
She went to the state. We formed. I had no idea. I just wanted to be in the wrestling business. I loved wrestling. I thought, boy, I really want to be in it, and I'm not going to be a wrestler. I'm sick, but I wanted to be a promoter, and that's what happened. And Gary Capetta was a good friend of mine.
Oh, we love Gary.
Still a good friend.
Yeah.
So I had some good people who tried to give me advice, as best they could. And it was trial and error, and that's how I learned.
Can I ask you something?
Sure, anything you like.
I'd hate to. I'm a huge fan of Capetta.
Gary's great.
Great guy. But how come Gary doesn't ever get married? Like, I never see him with a woman. Is there something going on there with Gary?
I have no idea.
Thorough.
I'm
Gary's
asking
awesome.
a question.
Well, maybe he's not into that. Maybe he's just a private dude. Maybe he's got a million girlfriends and hangs out with the Pharaoh and
could.
shoots heroin.
Listen, I'm not on the inside.
Well, of course he doesn't do that.
The man mentioned he was good friends with Gary. Maybe he knew something.
Gary's like a brother to me. I love the man. He's really
awesome.
Hey, look, there's listen.
I don't know anyone's personal life. There's a lot of people.
I'm not saying you do. You're getting defensive, Mitch. I'm just asking a question.
That's great.
I honestly don't know.
Did you ever see him with Joe LeCue?
Pardon? No.
No? Nothing like that?
Listen, Gary is a close friend for many years. He's
I'm
the
a
best.
huge Gary fan.
He is the best.
You know what? That guy.
I'm telling you, when I was on
great.
QVC, and I'm negotiating with these people to go on to do my thing on QVC because, I spoke to Gary, And he's the one who advised me how his WCW contract was for him to go work full time. I used the same things that he was telling me when I negotiated when I'm on TV for those people. So Gary's nothing but the best, you know.
So on the last show, we got into it about Thunder Rosa and superstar Billy Graham. Being that you're so close to the industry, and I'm sure you're friends with a bunch of these guys, what are your thoughts on the whole thing with the superstar Billy Graham situation about him looking for GoFundMe money?
You know, as you know, Lloyd Anoa'i, who's, you know, was just on your show, I
Yes.
just spoke to him. He just had his kidney transplant, and knock on wood, everything went well with him and his
God
wife.
bless. God bless.
You know, and as much as these guys give, a lot of them don't have a lot of money. You know, just because you made money 30 years ago doesn't mean you continue. And Lloyd has a job and he works, but sometimes guys need a little bit of help. Billy Graham, I don't know if he ever got a job after the wrestling business. You know, I have no idea who he married, has money saved. I don't know these people. So I guess some guys feel a little desperate sometimes that they do need help to whatever. From what I understood, Billy Graham was living in like a small efficiency or like in a motel with him and his wife. So he really was not well off. And when you go to these clinics and this stuff, even if you have insurance, you don't have insurance, you know, sometimes they do need some money.
You've been a promoter. Does it fall into the hands of Vince McMahon to have to take care of this man?
You know, it's like you had a teenage job, you worked at McDonald's as a kid for 4 or 5 years. Your life goes on and you get sick, and, you know, at the, you know, 30 years later, do you go back to McDonald's and ask you to help you because you worked for them for 4 years? You know, it's a tough situation. You know, if the man is hurting and people can give, that's up to them. You know, that's a personal choice. I wouldn't. There's a lot of GoFundMe's out there from all different types of people. You know, some wrestling, sports players, this and that. I mean, Jake the Snake Roberts had a GoFundMe for his shoulder surgery. I remember they put it up and they were giving stuff. This guy still gets top dollar to do autograph appearances and everything. But I guess for the insurance, you know, he didn't have insurance. The surgery cost so much, and if fans want to donate people, that's up to you.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
personally, I've given to people's organizations, you know, what I can. You know, that's my personal choice. If I feel someone's in need, if I can help a friend, I'll help a friend. But just to send money to someone because you entertained me 34 years ago, that's a tough scenario. You know, that's being honest with you.
Monty DeFaro gave to the Hanoi surgery.
I know you did.
GoFundMe,
Yeah, I know. In fact, Lloyd, he said that's, you know, Kevin Nash gave to him. And
That's cool.
he called up Kevin, and
That's
Kevin
cool.
says, we take care of our own.
That's cool.
You know, because Kevin was fortunate enough. So, I mean, I spoke to Lloyd yesterday, you know, and he's very thankful for the prayers and whoever contributed, because there's going to be a time that, you know, him and his wife both can't work. They're going back and forth. You know, times are tough for a lot of people.
I honestly think you should be donating to your church or your temple before you're donating to someone's GoFundMe page, right?
Listen,
Personal choice.
You know, it's all personal choice.
Personal
You
choice.
know, and that's why we are in the country and where people can make decisions like this.
Right.
And
And don't
thank God.
chastise those who
Thank God.
decide to go one way or the other way.
Yeah, no, it's not a cool thing to do. If you could afford to help someone, if you want to, that's your personal choice. Don't be
Right.
forced into it. Don't put something on and put you down if you don't. That's
Right.
what I don't like.
Right.
Not to veer you off this,
Okay.
but we're going to talk about your QV because I got to tell you, I keep telling Mitch you should write a book because
No, not
his
happening.
life. But I don't know if Phil's screwing with us, but Phil says Andre used to love QVC and other home shopping channels. Is that true?
Who?
Andre the Giant.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Okay, I
Phil's got some interesting
you know,
stuff
I
tonight.
never met Andre.
Okay.
You know, I from my
Wait
understanding.
a minute. What would Andre buy off the QVC
Listen.
channel? They're selling like regular-sized football jerseys
Wait a
and
second.
stuff. What's he buy?
Don't forget back in the day when I did QVC, 1999, whatever that time. You only had 20 channels on TV.
Yeah.
QVC had a low
Yeah.
number on the cable box.
Yeah, yeah.
People are entertained by it. They were
Yeah.
on there. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
By the way,
sold-
the first lady of wrestling says that you were on her favorite shopping
There you
channel.
go, dude. You're all
You
over
know,
that.
that was a long time. I mean, I did over $10 million on QVC with
my
one product in a
God.
little over 2 years.
Wow.
What
you
are
know,
we,
it was-
what are we
I had-
doing
I had a-
having
I had
a
a good
show?
run
We should
there.
be on QVC. What are we doing?
You know, but that was a different time. Don't
That's
forget,
true.
it wasn't Amazon. It wasn't, you know, it was a different time back then.
Yeah.
You know, today I still hear they do some great numbers, but they're competing. Everyone's competing.
Yeah.
You know, at this, how many channels are out there? Look at all the networks you're on.
Too many.
You
Too
know,
many channels on cable.
thank God we have YouTube that
Right.
you're on now, where we could do a show like this instead of being public access. Plus, you have cable. But I mean, that didn't exist years ago.
Right.
It really didn't.
Hey, Phil says that Andre bought a lot of his stuff off of QVC. Oh. It's pretty cool.
It's interesting. I'm trying to figure out what he bought.
So cool.
There's a lot of stuff on there.
Mitch, being one of the, early promoters from back in the day, 1986, we saw that card from. How do you look at today's wrestling promoters?
You really want me to go there?
Absolutely, I want you to go there.
Okay. I've been to a few shows because of our good friend, Mr. Eric Sims. He always would have some when I take my son. Went to a couple shows. Some of the shows are good, and some of the shows are not so good. And I don't want to knock anybody.
Okay.
Because maybe some people didn't like the shows that I did back then. You know what I mean? For whatever it was. I feel that the people who are running the shows now don't promote like we did back in the day. You know, to be honest with you, Tommy Fierro is really doing a nice job building his brand, his whatever he's doing. He's running some good shows, you know, and I got to give credit where credit is due. He's doing a nice job. He's keeping storylines consistent, and he's only working a small area, but his fans will follow him. Mm-hmm. Some of these other shows I went to, they just very, very amateurish, you know, and I would never let some of these guys in the ring. Just because they don't look like wrestlers. They look like they should be pushing shopping carts in Walmart. You know, they don't look like wrestlers. When I had one of my friends who I always would book would be Tom Brandy. Tom's 6'4". I mean, good-looking guy. He used to walk into a room, you knew he was a wrestler.
Right.
You know, that's what you're missing today. Guys would come in, they would look like pro wrestlers. They would act like pro wrestlers. You know, these guys today...
Is it always just size, or is it also it factor? Like, let's say Rey Mysterio walked into your card, and you didn't know who he was.
We had some smaller guys years ago who were very good, who would work on the shows and would do that style.
Right.
And it was a small niche, and you'd only do one match of that.
It's part of the
card. I want to put a guy Rey Mysterio size against Tom Brandy, who's 6'4". It doesn't look right. You need another guy to work with him.
Right.
Who would do that sort of, just like having a girls' match. You know, you want two girls who are going to put on, like Misty Blue would always work for me, and Linda. They put on the best matches there were. Anytime you had Misty, she was good. She was on TV. They gave a great show, and that's what people want. People want to be entertained. You know, and I don't like slap fests that the guys are doing. Okay. Stuff has to make sense. Mm-hmm. You know,
were you horrified when Rey Mysterio won the world title years back?
You know what? It's all at this point. I mean, at the end of the day, everything's changed over the years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not what it was. So, you know, don't forget, 86 to 96, a lot happened.
Oh, boy, you ain't kidding.
You know what I'm saying?
My God,
in the wrestling. Yeah. So when I finished up was around 90.
Right.
And then 89, basically 88, I started dabbling in the pitch business. And then I went into it full time.
So did wrestling burn you out that quick?
No, this is what happened. There was no money to be made on an independent promoter.
Okay.
I'm a kid. I'm not making any money.
Okay.
Because my relationship with George Napolitano, George introduced me, I'll tell you the story really quick, to Lonnie Hanover. And if you don't know the name Lonnie Hanover, he was the press agent for Scores. Every time Howard Stern would talk about Scores back in the day, that's because of Lonnie. And Lonnie took a liking to me, and I was a young guy, and he says, Mitch, this wrestling is not for you. Okay. You should become a pitchman. I said, what the hell is a pitchman? And he basically told me a little bit about it. And this, if you go back, there was a product years ago on TV called DD7. It was a stain remover. Mm-hmm. They would do like a magic act. They put ink on your hand, and you put a little of this cream on and take the ink off. Mm-hmm. So that's how I came in about that time. There was a Space Saver hanger. There was a couple of products they were promoting. Guys were making unbelievable money. So when I came into this, to being a pitchman, that was basically Lonnie just telling me about it. And he was trying to discuss, because he did a little bit of selling when he was younger, and he was telling me, you know, the techniques that you would do to get a crowd. And he's just telling me this over the phone. And I basically figured it out. And that's how I went from one product to another product to another product. And when I came in, I was a natural. You know, just not to pat myself, but I was a natural, you know. And I had a lot of good friends help me, and I watched people, and you learn. But I was, right off the bat, I was very good at it. So it came easy to me.
So you talked about how you went into this career and you
Right.
earned the money the right way, and you're coming from that wrestling industry. Now, and you're still involved with some of the wrestlers,
Well,
and you know them.
Ted Petty was my best friend, you know,
Right.
who was Rocco Public Enemy.
How do you,
Nice.
you know, again, we're just fans. We always
Okay.
say this.
Right.
But how do you feel about the wrestlers trying to gimmick money out of the fans? Or like it always seems to me to be a gimmick.
Okay,
always-
wrestling's a carny business.
Right.
Okay, so if you want to go back to the days of wrestling, you're being a fan, you're watching New York wrestling. I remember, you know, you like Michael, you told me that you couldn't believe when Sal told you about Professor Elliott taking the tapes and dropping off at
Right.
WR Studios, and the man never drove. Well, obviously, he had someone drive him we'd give tickets to,
Right.
but it was a very carnivalistic business back then, the way they would run it on a local basis. Guys were living in apartments, different places, and you come in, you come out, the promoters were running it. A lot of guys did a lot of small spot shows, you know, besides the bigger shows. So you're working, it's like working a circuit. You come here, you go there, that's what so they're coming from that background. So when they're trying to work people, that's their business. Back then, you know, they didn't tell you it was what it was back then. So in the back of their mind, they always were working somebody. You know, that's the business.
Isn't there guilt behind that though? That you work someone out of their
It's
hard-earned money?
it's the same thing as a guy in a carnival who's trying to get your money for playing a game.
Right.
You know, it's a business. It's how they feed their family. So if you look at it like that, same thing as a guy who has a restaurant and he wants to upsell you on a dish or this. This is business. It's business to these people.
Gotcha.
You know, so whether you are whatever you do, this is life. It's a business.
They're selling you an idea.
You're selling, you're selling someone an idea.
Yeah.
You know, you want them to believe in you.
Yep.
You can laugh at that Thigh Master. That thing used to take in $5,000-$6,000 a day at the Roosevelt Raceway Flea Market.
Wow.
You know, guys were making a fortune.
Your thoughts on the
that thing.
Ginsu knife?
I sold them. I sold the Ginsu knives on TV. I did on QVC. I sold a lot of knives.
How about the wok?
the hand hammered wok?
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
God,
yeah.
that thing must have made kabillions.
They made a lot of money
I
back
bet
in the
they
day.
did.
One of my
TV
favorites-
was very strong.
One of my favorite stories, and I couldn't believe it, is that you were on the Morton Downey Jr. show.
Oh, we don't want to discuss that.
Come on, how did you end up on the Morton Downey
Okay,
Jr.?
so Davey G, who worked on my shows, his real name is Davey Geigold. He was Morton Downey's like security guard, bouncer, whatever. He would always be on the show. Davey used to work the shows. I mean, I knew Davey since I'm a kid. And he calls me and says, Mitch, they're going to have a show on wrestling. And I do not like the athletic commissions. I never did. I thought they were all... I mean, at the end of the day, we know what wrestling is.
Right.
It comes out. And what the hell's with the commission? I'd rather give the state sales tax money than all the that goes along with it. But years ago, they wanted to keep everyone out, so you had a commission. They still have a commission in New York State. Don't ask me why, but Vince didn't get rid of the New York Athletic Commission. So the show was about wrestling with the commission. So here I am. Must have been. I don't know if the tape is out there. I don't even want to see the tape, to be honest with you. But I went on the Morton Downey Jr. show, and I was sick. I had no voice. And Lou Albano's all drunked up in there. Davey O'Hannon was there. All these people were there. And I was like the one who was, they were all, we need the commission. It's real. It's wrestling, And here I am saying it's all, we don't need the commission. And that's what, but that was the show. It was a long time ago. It was, today I laugh at all. I really do. It was fun, But back then I was hot. Well, I hated Lou for years from that one.
Oh.
Yeah, because he ate me up. I was a kid, You got drunk Lou Albano going crazy. I didn't have any voice. I couldn't say, Lou, hey, go,
Right.
I couldn't do it. I had no
Right.
voice. I was sick.
Now, did you say anything to him after the show?
Nah,
Like, why'd you
it
take advantage of
doesn't
that?
mean nothing.
No.
It really doesn't. Listen, I could, years later, I had a concession in the Danbury Fair Mall. And I used to see Lou with Alpha every so often. He'd be, in Allentown and different stuff. And I went over, I said hi to him. He was just sitting in the mall at the food court, and that life goes on.
Where do you stand? Who's the greatest manager?
Okay, you're going to hit me up
time?
with this. Okay.
Yeah.
So Paul Heyman worked for me in 1989, it was? 88? 88 must have been 89. Paul has become the greatest manager in the business. Too many years on nationwide television, not regional, on top. Besides the fact he created that whole ECW from the promotion standpoint, I say Paul's the best. That's just my opinion.
The best or the most famous?
No, I think he's the best at it.
I'm not arguing.
I really believe that, you know, is he the character that Lou Albano was or Freddie Blassie was? That was a different time.
He's his own character.
Right, he's his own person. You know,
no, he's great.
You know, he's not a... It's just, I think Paul is... He's believable. He plays the part. And he's played the part at the highest level for a long time.
A very long time.
So, who broke the Undertaker streak? Paul or Brock Lesnar. Paul was there. Roman Reigns, Paul is there.
Right.
And, you know, and that goes back to the Samoans right now, because Paul used to manage the head shrinkers.
So when you knew him back then, did you feel like he had a great mind for wrestling
Paul,
back then?
absolutely. I think Paul's the best.
I would never have thought that when he was carrying that giant phone. I just feel like,
Paul's the best. I'm telling you, from day one, Paul is great. Don't forget, he was around. Johnny Rod's told you the story. I mean, I listened to the show.
Yeah.
They got him to drive the van.
He
was around the best.
Yeah, he was.
You know, he was taking pictures, trying to push George Napolitano and Bill Apter out of the way in the garden. He loved it.
Yeah.
So here's a guy who loved the business. Obviously, he's not going to be a wrestler. And got into the promotion aspect. Just, no one's going to surpass him. Bubba Dudley, what's his name? You know what I'm talking
Bully
about.
Ray.
Bully Ray, whatever. He says that same that we beat up the Public Enemy. They didn't want. First of all, Big Dick Dudley, Alex and Teddy were very close.
Big Dick Dudley.
So,
nice.
so Alex and Teddy were close. Teddy and Taz were close. I was there when all these guys were being trained by Johnny Rods.
Wow.
I see them all be trained. I didn't see that group, but I was after high school. I used to watch Johnny train guys for my whole senior year. So he says, "Oh, the Public Enemy want to work. We beat the Public Enemy." No way you'd beat Ted Petty. No way in hell. You know, you want to say it to do your tough act. You shouldn't say it. Teddy's no longer here to tell you, shut the hell up. You know,
he's bragging over someone who's not even around.
It's not right. It's not right
Understood.
I'm telling you didn't beat him up. You might have worked stiff with him, but you didn't beat up. You didn't force him to do anything. You know, the Road Warriors, Joe and Mike, they loved Teddy. They both. I mean, at Teddy's funeral, Animal sent the most beautiful flowers. So I mean, they worked with everyone. The Bushwhackers, you name the team, they worked with them. You don't work with everyone, and then what? The Funks. Terry Funk adored Teddy. Adored him. I mean, they would work the boys in the back. Everyone talks openly now, so it is what it is. It was years ago. After the match they did in the ring, they went back to work the boys in the locker room.
I know Teddy's not here to speak for himself, but since you were so close to him, I have to ask you, did Teddy have any regrets that they didn't get? Listen, in ECW, you know how they were huge.
Okay.
In ECW, did he have any regrets that wasn't somehow able to translate to the bigger companies?
No. Okay. No, it is what it is.
Okay.
You know, everyone, it's a business.
Yeah.
Teddy knew exactly we know what was going on. You know, it was a small company. Paul and him and Todd were just doing what they can do. They only had the ECW arena, they had TV. And Paul never got the next spot.
Right.
You know, and there's only so much you could make with Paul.
Johnny and Rocco just, hit a political wall kind of at the end of the day when it comes to the inside of the business to try to get further, or was it,
no.
were they blocked?
Teddy was older. No, Teddy was older. Don't forget, Teddy,
right.
He didn't make it until he was later on.
Right.
You know, he was in his 40s as Rocco.
He was killing himself. Just killing himself.
And the funny thing is, when he was the Cheetah Kid, he would do all those spots and everything. No one wanted to work with him back then. The only one worked with him was a guy named Mike Kalua. He wrestled as King Kalua because Mike was strong enough to catch him. So we would have Cheetah Kid versus King Kalua at a lot of shows because not too many guys wanted to work that style. Years later, everyone's doing that stuff.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
You started promoting during Hulkamania, Robert. How did you feel when you saw ECW years later? Were you like, what is going on here?
Paul was my friend, I was invited in the locker room. I'd be down there with Teddy, with Paul.
Did you know something special was happening? Because something special was happening.
I knew they were doing well. You know, I mean, it's listen. My friends were there. Taz. I mean, I was very friendly with Pete. Mick Foley. I was friendly with Mick.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but so I'll give you a great story. I'll give you a great story really quick. So Mick Foley and Teddy were working for the AWA. Sal Correnti got Mick on the show, and they were working some shows, and Jerry Lawler was up at that time.
Could Mick afford McDonald's back in those days?
Mick was always tight.
All right, Mick was always tight.
He was always tight with money because
Excellent.
you know he knew what to save. Truthfully, you
Okay.
know, don't forget
Certain things you shouldn't save on though, like your teeth.
Yeah, he didn't save up to go to see the dentist.
Okay, so okay, listen, I'm not here to pick on Mick.
No, we are.
Okay, that's fine.
Go ahead.
So since you know all these people,
Yeah.
you probably worked with Bruiser Brody, Frank.
Actually, I was with him in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
He never worked for me on a show.
So when you were with him in Puerto Rico,
Yes, great guy. I was with
You
him
knew
in Victor Quinones' apartment, went to him with the matches and everything.
when you found out that he was supposedly murdered in the shower.
Oh, I knew it immediately. I got the phone call. I called right down to Puerto Rico when we heard it.
Some wrestlers have been here, and they've taken the opinion that Frank was looking for it, and other people said he was cold-blooded murder for over money.
Could Frank have avoided this situation?
Yeah, what does Mitch Seinfeld think about this?
All right. So you guys always talk about the Brody situation with different people. Always ask that question.
Right.
It's got a life of its own.
Okay. I do not know what was in Jose's mind. I don't know personally what was going on. In fact, years ago when Jaggers was up here doing Feinstein's shoot interview, I was in the room, and Bobby said it was about money.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people say it was about money, points, this and that. I don't know the real story. I do know that I saw Jose years later. I was down there, and I'm not going to say the person, but he said, please tell this person they're still my friend. You know, because he doesn't want to lose a friend.
Okay.
Because, you know, he was close with a lot of people up here.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to mention it because it's personal. But, you know, Jose was always nice to me. You know, so Frank was nice to me. Blackjack Mulligan, when I met him, was very nice. These people are nice to me. So what happens between two guys and something gets out of hand, you know? I mean, there was a story one time. I'll tell you the story. Estrada was pissed. Jose Estrada, they owed him money in Puerto Rico. He wanted to go, you know, he was really pissed. He wanted to go there, and he wanted to kill somebody in the office because they owed him money. Guys get hot over money. And, you know, when you got to feed your family and you got all these problems in your life, money can do some weird to people.